All right, everybody, so part 2 of this bow building series. Here I got the stave that we started on in the first part. If you didn't get a chance to see that yet, we started with a raw stave, removed all the sapwood and bark, got it down to one continuous growth ring, the length of the stave, and we got our profile roughed out on here. Part 2, we're gonna be knocking off a lot more wood and hopefully getting this thing starting to bend and look more like a bow and less like a stick. So we're gonna jump right into it here, guys. All right, so the first step here, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put this stave in my vise with one of the edges facing up. I'm gonna take my draw knife and start removing wood, trying to get close to the edge of our line that we scribed here for the limbs. I don't wanna go right up to it, but we're gonna get close. We're gonna do that the full length on both sides and then go from there. One thing to keep in mind as you're doing this step, if you can notice the way my stave is set in the vise, it's not perfectly square. The back is at a little bit of an angle. You want your draw knife to be square with that. If I was to hold my draw knife square with me, it's going to be cutting into it sideways. Keep all your tools square with the back of the bow. Okay, so we've got down to pretty close on both sides, all the way down here. Next step is we're gonna flip it over and we're gonna start removing wood from the belly of the bow because we have way more than what we need here. So I'm gonna show you a little trick to take a lot of that off really fast. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is just kind of roughly draw what my handle section is gonna look like on the side, just to help us kind of keep track where we are here. So this will kind of be my shelf area here, going down into the throat of my grip. Now that I've got my handle section drawn on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right behind where my taper is going to be, behind my handle here. And I'm going to take my handsaw and I'm going to cut down into here. I'm going to make 2 cuts actually. So I can get a notch here. I'm going to knock that notch out. And then we'll be able to take a pry bar and get in there and pry about half of this material off the belly of the bow here. right, so we got this notched out on the belly of the bow here. So now what you can do is you can take a pry bar and you can get in here and pry this up, and it'll just pop a lot of material off the belly here. When you do this, you want to go kind of slow. If you get your notch too deep, when this starts to split, it can run down into the back of the bow, which makes it into firewood real quick. So you want to try to go slow and keep an eye on the edges as it goes. So if you can see here right now, I'm running pretty much right down the middle. You just kind of go a little bit and keep an eye on both sides of it. Just like that. All right, guys, I just noticed something and I made a mistake, and we're gonna fix this real quick. So when I was laying out my bow, I must have gotten in a hurry and I messed up where my shelf goes. I drew my shelf going off of this mark here. This is supposed to be the throat of my grip. My shelf is supposed to be here. I just noticed when I was looking at it, I'm like, something is not right here. I went back and double checked, and that's where I messed up. So we're gonna fix that real quick. I'm glad we caught that before we went much further. All right, so next step, we are going to come back to the edges here. I'm gonna get my rasp out and we're gonna clean these edges up, and we're gonna take it right down to the edge of the line. The reason I didn't do that with the draw knife is sometimes it will tear along the edge here, and that can get into your bow. That rasp will do a lot cleaner work on the edge there. So we're gonna get started on that next. right, so we got down to our guidelines all the way down the length of the bow here. So the next step, I'm gonna come back to the handle section here, and I'm going to redraw my guide on here. And then I'm gonna scribe a line all the way down the length of the limbs on the edge here, about 7/16 down from the back of the bow. And that's gonna help serve as a guide. So when I start taking my draw knife and removing wood off the belly here, I don't go too far too fast. So we're gonna get those drawn on and then keep moving. All right, so now that we got those little guidelines drawn on the side of the limbs, we can come back to the draw knife, and we're gonna start removing wood off the belly of the bow here. Now, once you get to this point, you wanna go kind of slow. Keep an eye on your line on both sides. It's easy, especially if you have a stave that's got a little bit of twist in the limb. It's really easy to think that you're going nice and flat, and really you could be riding at an angle one way or the other. And when you get to this point, it starts going fast. You can get a thin side of the limb. So make sure you take your time, keep an eye on both sides of the limb, and slowly just start removing some material off the belly here. Okay, so we got the limbs thinned down with our drawn knife. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a chisel, and I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna knock this edge off and give it a nice rounded contour right there into our limb. All right, so when we come in here with our chisel to round this off, we got our flat side of our chisel and we got our beveled side. If you keep the beveled side facing in towards the riser, you can use that as a pivoting point, and you can almost just hammer this through there and just scoop this out like that. So once you're done kind of roughing out that contour, you can come in with a scraper and you can kind of clean that up a little bit. We're not too worried about finished work right now. We got a long ways to go before we get to that, but you can kind of touch that up, smooth it out. So when you get to this portion, when we're going to start scraping, you can use your draw knife and hold it perpendicular to the limb. And now it works good as a scraper. I got a scraper here. This is from Pine Hollow Longbows, and I really like this. It works really good. But we're gonna start scraping, removing material off this belly. We're gonna try to stay pretty flat with the limb. We don't want to get to one side more than the other too much. It's okay, you can round it a little bit, but you don't want to get one side of the limb thinner than the other. And we're just gonna start scraping down the whole length of these limbs, trying to keep it pretty even until we start getting it to bend a little bit more. And then we'll see if we got some stiffer or thinner spots that we need to feather out. All right, so we got it where it's starting to bend pretty good. We still got a long ways to go, but we're to the point now where I'm gonna get some water heating up. We're gonna steam these tips and get a little bit of curve bend in there. So while our water is heating up, I'm just getting some stuff ready here. You want to this is the part where it's good to be organized and have everything ready to go. So once your limb tips are steamed, you're not messing around getting stuff ready while they're cooling down. This is a form I made. It's just kind of a gradual curve. This is what I use to curve the tips. You don't have to do this step either, by the way. I like to do it. I think it adds a little bit of performance to the bow and takes a little hand shock out of it, but you absolutely can skip this part and just do a straight limb bow too. I got my form. I got some C clamps here I use to hold it while it's cooling. I got some just little pieces of cardboard. These are cheap clamps. The edges are kind of rough on them. I'll just put a little piece of cardboard in there as a padding to protect that limb so it's not digging into it is all. Your nicer C clamps, that's not quite as big as an issue. But we're gonna let this water heat up and then we're gonna get ready to steam these tips. We're gonna let that go for about 10 minutes. All right, so it's pretty much cool to the touch. We're gonna get it out of here and get the other side heating up so we can get it done too. All right, guys, so that is gonna do it for part 2. Part 3, we're gonna be taking this down to final tiller, getting it strung up, and doing the finish work and see if we can't get this thing to actually shoot. So far it's coming along pretty good. We're gonna let this sit for about a week just to let this wood come back up to relative humidity after steaming it. And yeah, make sure to subscribe if you wanna see how this bow turns out so you don't miss it.